Yes, hello. Thank you for joining me today. And we're going to be talking about the golden ratio and how I believe it could relate to the DLC release date. Okay, so what is the golden ratio? It's basically a mathematical equation where the ratio between two quantities equals approximately 1.618, also labeled as the Greek letter for phi. It originated in ancient Greece by mathematicians such as Pythagoras and Lucid, deemed as the golden ratio or goldener Schnitt at a much later date by Martin Ohm in 1835. Now, it's not just one person. It originally came from somebody named Fibonacci, also known as Leonardo of Pisa, and we're going to be going over that in a second with his multiple aliases. I think that's towards the end of it. But it's a combination of a lot of great minds came together. You can read the following, and then the bottom is going to be the formula, but we're going to get into that formula in 2 seconds. Again, this is not about math. It's just a very basic understanding of how you could see the ratio in the real world. Okay, so I'm going to be talking about the golden ratio a lot over the next few slides. This is just a very basic view of what the golden ratio looks like. This is just going to be the only math slide that we have, so just stick with me for 2 seconds. Basically, we're just looking at the formula above. A plus B in parentheses divided by A equals A over B. So A is always going to be the larger section. B is always going to be the smaller. And so we're looking at 5 centimeters total. This is all approximated, obviously. And then we're going to divide that 5 total by phi, which is going to be 1.618. And that's how we're going to get 3.090. Now, just to get the b, which is going to be the smaller, we just take 5 minus what we just got, 3.090, and that's how we're going to get 1.91. Just plugging everything super simply back into the equation. This is basically what it looks like. I just want to show you the ratio of, because we're going to be talking about arms, ligaments, animal parts, and stuff like that. And so I just wanted you to see kind of what it looks like just mathematically before we get into the details. Okay, so now we're going to take the ratio and we're going to spin it a little bit to find the golden spiral. So the golden ratio geometric aesthetic. When applied to design through harmonic rhythm and proportion, we can begin to see its beauty emerge in a variety of real-world examples. And this is going to be outlined by the golden spiral, or the Fibonacci sequence. The golden spiral is a logarithmic pattern or spiral whose growth factor is phi, the golden ratio. So we're basically, I'm going to show you two examples below. It's going to be the Fibonacci sequence and the Lucas numbers. Both of them are going to be complementary sequences, but what we're going to be focusing on for this video is purely the Fibonacci sequence. Okay, so there are a ton of real-world references and examples of the golden ratio. We're going to be going over a lot of them here. We are going to be getting into Elden Ring in about 2 seconds. I just want to kind of explain the basis. So the design of the golden ratio, closely related to the Fibonacci sequence that we just talked about, can be found in a wide range of real-world examples, from the spiral in galaxies to the formation of hurricanes, in the creation of natural organic growths and flowers, down to our very own fingers. Okay, now the moment we were all waiting for, we finally are getting to Elden Ring. So basically the connections that the Fibonacci sequence and the golden spiral have: the spiral formation of the map and the galaxy it resides within, so the birthplace of the Elden Beast, Falling Star Beast, Estelle. Then we have the Great Storm residing in the crumbling Farum Azula. And then also the measurements of the brilliant Goldmask uses to formulate the creation of the Great Rune. So how he's always tapping his finger and always trying to do his mathematical instructions. He's never, speaking. He's always very focused. We'll be going over that in 2 seconds. And then we have another slide that's going to be talking a little bit more about the connection. Okay, so the connections continued. We have the Erdtree, as well as the golden seeds and the flora that inhibit each biome. We also have the fauna residing in the lands between and the grounds below. Then we're also going to have Miquella's Cocoon and Mogh's Great Rune. Okay, so getting into galaxies. The golden spiral can be found in the shape of the galaxies and the arms that orbit around the larger masses. Now, galaxies don't necessarily form a perfect spiral because they can't be measured accurately. They're mostly completely random stars and space rocks floating together. They do, however, visually, from an outsider's perspective, form a spiral patterns that can be observed through far enough distance, typically through telescopes, obviously. As we all know, the main antagonist, the Elden Beast, comes from the cosmos, a messenger from the cosmic outer god. Okay, so Elden Ring's map. The lands between take the form of the golden spiral, possibly using Landel, the royal capital, as a place of origin, and spiraling outward, showing its wave of influence throughout the lands between. I did, when I first got into this theory and this idea, I got kind of sidetracked because I had finished Elden Ring and then I read something a manga that we're going to go over in a second, actually, in the later slide. And it kind of got me thinking a little bit more about the Golden Spiral and what it meant. And there's so many references in Elden Ring that I had to put it out there. But when I first Googled it, I was so surprised that no one else was really talking about it as much. But I did want to give a shout out to some Reddit users that I came across. So it's The Headache, A Bucket of Puppies, and Boss Nash for pointing out. They had basically a Reddit thread going where they were talking about the Golden Spiral Fibonacci sequence as far as the map, and I thought that was really interesting, and I was really glad that other people were picking up on it, that I wasn't completely a lunatic. They did not place the capital as a place of origin. They argued that Renmain Castle was the place of origin, and I guess based off of where the rot began because of the Great Shattering, when Melania basically did the nuclear explosion over there, that it could have been spiraling outward, showing the wave of influence that rot has had as well. So it kind of, I guess, depends on perspective, which I thought was kind of interesting too. And then another small example that I found on the map itself. So the sequence is found in the many vortexes throughout the map. The one above that I have shown here is right above Mount Gelmir, but there are a bunch of different small vortexes found throughout. I found a couple different videos on YouTube talking about how, like, Pangea, the continents had moved and that kind of changed the waterways. The lands between were kind of once a bigger thing that, got split and then replaced back together, possibly by the Elden Beast or, whoever had the greater power to do that. But I saw a couple of videos on that as well. But there were a lot of different vortexes over in the seas, every direction on the map. So I thought that was really cool. Okay, so more specifically in the map, we have the crumbling Farum Azula. There's a big storm going on. If you've been in the area, it's just basically just a vortex of winds that are constantly gusting around. It's carrying fragmented ruins of Farum Azula. Basically, so the eye of the storm moves in a counterclockwise spiral, and given the right circumstances, it will increase at a stable pattern, a similar pattern to or of the golden ratio. This spiral is only an approximation of one particular equiangular triangle or spiral. Sorry. Also, hurricanes don't really have a definite shape. We could say that it's roughly that of a spiral based on particularly the physical appearance. So just like how we talked about the galaxies earlier, it's not measured exactly to be a golden spiral, but from an outsider perspective, you can visualize, you could see the pattern, the spiral, maintaining. And then also the storm found in Farum Azula has the circular movements of strong winds, similar to that of a hurricane. So that's kind of how I cross those two, the storm itself and a hurricane. It's not said to be a hurricane, but it's just a strong bit of wind pretty much. Okay, so I was just about to put this video out until I started looking at some of the other videos out there that were talking a little bit more about the geometric patterns on some of the architecture. And I've been watching somebody named Queen Lag. I hope I'm saying that right. She's fantastic. She's a YouTuber, and she was pointing out that there's a spiral-like design etched into the side of the wall in the Divine Towers. I don't know what tower she was specifically at when she took her picture, but I was at Lernia, and basically there's more of these spiral patterns. There could be on other infrastructures. I didn't take the time to really check other ruins throughout the lands between, but as you know, when we were just talking about Farum Azula, it is broken off, and there are giant pieces of building. There's basically almost entire structures out there. So there could be other spirals etched into those. I'm not 100% sure, but she did point that out, and I thought that was fantastic. It's because it's hard to see. If you look on the bottom one, that's just what it normally looks like. So it's almost because of time kind of been worn down. And then she just did a little spiral on her own, and so I just copied that. But I thought it was a fantastic job, and I just wanted to put that in as well. Maybe it's not, again, a perfect spiral, but there's spirals in a lot of things. As far as, and we don't talk about this later in the video, but thought I'd mention it now. When you're going up, when you're taking the elevator up to a lot of these towers, the character will actually be switched around essentially. The elevator is moving the character around, and so in that form, it's a spiral as well, going either down or up. I thought that was really interesting. Okay, so next up we're going to be talking about the Noble Goldmask, one of my favorite characters. Tarnished and a scholar residing in the lands between that once deeply believed in fundamentalism of the Golden Order, his philosophical pursuits after the shattering alters his belief, resulting in finding faults within the Golden Order and creating a new great rune known as the Mending Rune of Perfect Law. I thought that was really interesting as far as how perfect math is, and His revelation comes from the observation he makes of the Erdtree, as well as forming calculation using his finger that we talked about earlier, and ligaments, so fixated on gaining insight that he doesn't even speak. I know that earlier forms of the game did have him speak. I'm glad they took that out. I thought it made him way more mysterious, way more focused on his work. To form his calculation, he uses his fingers to tick away the measurements. Fingers contain the Fibonacci sequence. Each section of your index finger from the tip of the base to the wrist is larger than preceding one by a ratio of 1.618, and we're actually going to break that down in about 2 seconds to help you understand and visualize that a little bit better. Okay, so we know that fingers play a pretty big role in the lore of the Elden Rings, the Elden Ring. So basically, you have the 2 fingers, the 3 fingers, so they're going to be kind of emissaries, giving messengers to the finger readers. So there's that whole thing. There's a measurable relationship between the phalangeal lengths and the equal angular, I cannot speak today, spiral of the path of the fingers, same as toes. The hand also shows a relation to your arm using the ratio, just as the ratio of your forearm to your hand, approximately 1.618, the divine proportion. So I did draw like a little bit of a map. I didn't want to steal anybody else's pictures online, so I just wanted to do my own. If you notice on the golden hand one, I added a little bit of Rycard's bling. But basically, if you want to look at it, it spirals in the same way that the golden spiral does, and then on the other one, the human arm, the golden ratio. And I'm very sorry they're blurry. I used my phone essentially to take the pictures afterwards, and didn't come out the best. But you could just see, I just wanted to kind of give you an idea of what it looks like for the ratios, because you keep hearing me say ratios, golden spiral, but you can't. It's not really giving you an understanding as far as what it looks like. And I'm going to put a video in the description below basically about the golden spiral, so you can get a little bit of a better idea, better understanding. But basically every time he's ticking away, so the Goldmask that we just talked about in the last slide, he's using his finger as measurement, which I thought was brilliant. And another way the Fibonacci ratio is found within the human bones includes 1 thumb per hand, so 2 bones per thumb, 2 hands, each finger being comprised of 3 bones, 5 digits on each hand, and 8 fingers. Again, the sequence is 0, 1, 1, 2, 3, 5, 8, 13, 21, 34, etc. I know that sounds like a bunch of numbers, you're just saying a bunch of numbers, but the sequence does fit. The numbers all match. I thought that was just, again, brilliant. The 2 fingers, 3 fingers are emissaries of the greater will, cosmic god. The finger readers watch the movements or measurements of the fingers to channel the desires of the greater will. So it's almost like a form of communication that they have, basically just tapping out essentially what they want to say, and the finger readers have to sit there and judge and gauge and then relay that to everyone else who isn't as mathematically inclined. The Erdtree. So the golden ratio is found in trees from one's trunk growth until it produces a branch, resulting in 2 growth points. Then the main trunk produces another branch, resulting in 3 growth points, following the sequence that we just listed in the last slide. So please see the diagram below for a better understanding. I did try, again, I didn't want to steal somebody else's image online, so I kind of just drew my own. But that's basically what it looks like in the corner. So you have, 1, then you have 2, 3, just like how we just talked about, but just to kind of give you a better representation. The parasitic Erdtree acts as a source of knowledge for the Golden Order. Again, the Golden Order, Golden Spiral, I thought that was very strangely connected. The divine proportion just seems so odd to me. So it's a source of knowledge for the Golden Order, and as a focal point throughout the game, you could see it basically whenever you start, wherever you are, a little obscured in the mountaintops of the giants, but otherwise it is always there. Point throughout the game, visible through almost every location. And then also when we went back to, we were talking about the Golden Spiral as far as the map, that's why I think that Lendel, the capital, is essentially, that's the spot of origin, and then everything kind of spirals out from there, showing its influence. I thought that was really neat. So let's talk a little bit about golden seeds. Sunflowers provide a great example of the spiraling patterns that we talked about earlier for the golden spiral. Seeds visible on the heads of the sunflower are produced at the center as they migrate outward in a pattern similar to that of the spiral, the golden spiral. Golden seeds are found throughout the base of an illusionary tree and flew from the Erdtree during the Great Shattering, ensuring a way for the Erdtree to continue living on, spreading its influence. So sunflowers are found in the land between as well, the tarnished golden sunflower and the golden sunflower. Just a couple of images to show you. But I thought, and you should do this yourself. Like, look up the Fibonacci sequence, look up the golden spiral, look at all the examples they give, and every example is found in Elden Ring, like verbatim. It is so odd to me. We're going to talk a little bit more about the flora and fauna in a second, but I just wanted to start kind of at the root, at the seed, and let's keep going. Okay, so before getting into Elden Ring flowers, I just wanted to kind of tell you the real world inspiration. So Fibonacci and Flora, the petals of some flowers grow with a pattern similar to Fibonacci sequence, including lilies, buttercups, and sunflowers. So the main ones that we're going to be looking at are going to be the lily, which has 3 petals, buttercups, which have 5, and then, phi appears basically in the sequence of petals due to it being the ideal packing arrangement. Each petal is approximately based or placed at 0.618 per turn, allowing for the best possible exposure to sunlight to ensure growth. Okay, so a lot of this is not, it's not speculation, but I spent a lot of times, I went through every flower in the game, counting the amount of petals, and largely the majority of them do not follow the sequence. So I just wanted to kind of put that out there. I'm not saying every flower is going to follow the sequence, but as far as the Rowa and Lilies, so Golden Rowa, Rimmed Rowa, Rowa Fruit have 3 leaves. Thought that was interesting because that follows the Fibonacci sequence. Trina's Lily and Miquella's Lily also have 3 parts, 2 leaves, and a flower containing 5 petals. Those are all Fibonacci sequence. So you can kind of, throw out Rowa if you don't, believe that that's in line as much. But I do think the lilies have a huge part to play in this. And like I said, the lilies are a real world example as well. So I thought that was really, it just seems really evident to me that it did have some of the Fibonacci sequence inspiration involved. Okay, so aside from those 2 groups, as far as Rowa and lilies are concerned, we also have the Miranda Sprouts, which one of my favorite enemies in the game. Miranda Sprouts have 5 inner petals, 5 outer petals, and 2 stamen. And so, again, you could just say, he's looking at any kind of plant. A lot of plants have that. Fibonacci sequence. I don't care. I'm still going to say it. The other one, Miranda Powder, dropped from a mature Miranda Sprout, has 3 stamen. And again, I tried to, some of them might follow the sequence too. It's really hard judging by some of the images or the images that I was able to find. So some of them might not, some of them definitely do. And poison blooms, even though they're not directly related, they also have 5 petals. And these are all kind of poisonous flora. So I thought that was kind of maybe had some relative similarities as well. I'm not 100% sure, but I thought that was really interesting. But those again all follow the Fibonacci sequence. Okay, so we're almost done with the flora, but I also wanted to throw this in there too, because the Arteria leaf was something that I at first was very annoyed by. I didn't really understand the importance of the plant itself, the leaf itself, and it would always kill me as I was trying to grab one because I always thought it was like this really rare item, and I know that everyone's made a lot of jokes on those about Reddit as well. I really deeply felt that. But it's basically pronounced Achillea tarmeca. So Achillea I thought was so funny. It's Achillea. It's killing me. So basically, this is sneezewort. It's a plant that displays the Fibonacci sequence and the number of growing points that it connects or that it contains. When the plant puts out a new shoot, that shoot also grows 2 months before it's strong enough to support another branching. So I know we talked about the Erdtree earlier, Fibonacci's tree. That's kind of in the same ballpark as that. The Achillea is a group of flowering plants in the family of, not even going to say that. These plants are known for their hairy, aromatic leaves. They grow flat clusters of small flowers at the top of each stem, which can be orange, white, yellow, pink, or red, which red is what we're going for. Now, there's not a lot of pictures of red on there, but they did say that it can be red, so I'm just going to go ahead and say it is red. Obviously, there's a lot of symbolism. Queen Lag, who I mentioned earlier, another YouTuber, has gone into some pretty deep explanations as far as why different plants are colored different ways. Again, brilliant stuff, kind of like delving into, what each plant means, how they're symbolically different, what they represent as far as their color patterns. So definitely check her out for that information. But I did think this was really interesting to come across as well. Okay, so this is going to be one of the last informations about the plants involving Elden Ring. So budding plants. So budding is when you basically insert a bud into the rootstock of another plant to produce a new plant. So side note, another method of vegetation propagation, which is grafting, aka Godric the grafting. at Stormvale Castle, how he grafts the dragon into his own arm. So there's a lot of plant-based, I don't even know what you would call them, similarities or analogies placed in throughout the lands between. And then specifically what we're talking about here is the crystal bud, the rimmed crystal bud, the sacramental bud. They all have 5 main branches. So, and I'm going to show you another picture a little bit closer in a second, but so each of the branches has different leaves. So one of them has 2 leaves, the next has 3 leaves, and the last has 5 leaves. And these are, again, all numbers related to the sequence. Okay, super quickly, just wanted to show you a little bit of a closer look, wanted to expand on the picture itself because I know it can be a little blurry. So you have your 5 branches there, and then I just wanted to kind of point out the 2, the 3, and the 5 leaves, again, sequence related. Okay, so enough about plants, let's start talking about some animals, the fauna of Elden Ring. So first off, we got the Warhawk. So as a hawk approaches its prey, its sharpest view is at an angle to their direction of flight. An angle that's the same as, you guessed it, the golden spiral. Warhawks use a similar flight pattern to real-world counterparts. They can be observed flying in a circular pattern at Stormvale Castle, the mountaintops of the Giants, Castle Sol, and crumbling Farum Azula. So you don't actually see them flying in a circular way. I wish that they did this a little bit more. They do attack in a circular way. The ones you see in flight, or the one that I kind of focused on for this to get the picture, is going to be at the mountaintops of the Giants. But I also wanted to kind of show you a real world, or not a real world, but a diagram of what a hawk in the real world does. So the flight patterns of the hawk mirrors the depictions of the dragons as a map on Farum Azula as well, if you wanted to go back. I tried to bring up the map a little bit, but it was kind of hard to see because my map was so janky, it was so blurred out. But if you look at Farum Azula, you can see the dragons. They're like little miniature dragons drawn into the map, and they're depicted flying around. And so if you wanted to look at that, and then you looked at a flight, the hawk flight pattern, it's the same thing essentially. I know some dragons are moving in different directions, but most of them are moving with the storm, with the great hurricane, tornado, gust of storm that's happening. So I thought that was, again, just such a strange similarity. Okay, next on the list we have the giant bats. So majority of the bats all look the same. Hated the bats. But there were a specific breed of bats on the mountaintops of the Giants. So just kind of getting into it, the eye markings on a specific moth wing, like that of the Polyphemus moth, and I put an image above to show you kind of what they look like, are approximately related to the golden ratio from its width and its length. So as far as where the eye markings are located, on the diagram, again, very sorry, it's a crudely drawn diagram, but it's kind of just showing you how the ratio works a little bit, just to give you a real world or a better interpretation of that. But then the markings are visually similar to the moth's wings formations. So only at the mountaintops of the Giants, like I mentioned earlier, there are these giant bats, and underneath their wings, they have a different variant than the typical, and they have these like weird eye shapes underneath, and they look exactly like the moth. Now, I'm not going to do the measurements as far as, you know, making sure that they align because it doesn't really matter, but I do think it's like a weird similarity. I don't know what that's supposed to symbolize as far as them being on the mountaintops of the Giants. Maybe they're just an older form, but I thought that was really interesting as well. Okay, so next on the list we have the Guillemot. So the Guillemot is similar in many ways to the penguin. They are distantly related. Their similarities derive from a phenomenon called convergent evolution, which is basically just distant relatives may converge on comparable appearance, just based on their location. Their main difference is that one can fly while others cannot. I'll make you a guess on which one is which. Penguins cannot. Penguins have been found to carry the golden ratio in their body structure, such as in their eyes, their beak, their wings. Please refer to the diagram. So just looking at the diagram, again, wonder who drew that. Just wanted to kind of show you where it was coming from. I don't want you to just think that all these creatures, I'm just saying golden ratio, golden spiral. They actually do, and you can look this all up yourself too. I thought it was beautiful when I was going through these lists of every animal that kind of fell in with the golden ratio. And there's a lot that I'm not including on here, but I'm just saying that everything on here was like, that's an Elden Ring, that's an Elden Ring. And originally when I was, you know, first playing it, I was wondering, how did they come up with all these animals? You know, specifically these animals, like just, you know, wide variety and great choices, but how did they come in? But, you know, what was the inspiration? And they could have just been doing their own thing, but it just seems very similar to a lot of the animals that you could find online that do fall in line with the ratio itself. So I thought that was really cool. Okay, next we're going to be talking about the giant ant. So the body sections and leg sections of the ant are defined by the golden sections of its length. The diagram alone kind of shows you, a good reference point. So these can be found in the underneath areas of the lands between specifically Ansel River, Noxtella, the deep root depths, and Miquella's, Haligtree. I love the ants. It kind of remind me of Honey, I Shrunk the Kids. Always wish I could be that size, shrink myself, and to eat a cosmic brownie. Take about a week doing so. But the ants, as you can see in the diagram, they kind of all fall in line with the ratio 2. I was just wondering, how did you come up with the ants? Like, these are such cool, I don't know. And I've never played any of the older FromSoft game. So maybe that they do have ants included in previous works as well, and they reuse them. But I just thought they're really neat. I really. Okay, so another animal that we have are the snails. So there's a wide variety of them. We're going to be focusing on the serpent snail, though, today. So when sliced open, the nautilus shells form a logarithmic spiral composed of chambered sections called camerae. Each new chamber is equal to the size of two camerae before it, which creates the logarithmic spiral, the golden spiral that we are talking about. This proportional growth occurs in snails as well. So snails come in the following variants: skeletal, crystal, spirit collar, and obviously serpent. The only one that we can see the actual shell itself on the crystal, it's kind of like a bunch of crystals obviously are formed around of it. Skeletal is a bit of a skull, and spirit collar, although I do think that it would look the same, it's just so bright because it's in spirit form that you can't really tell the spiral on there. But the serpents they perfectly, resemble that spiral form. I found this one, there's a few in Volcano Manor, and you just kind of put it to sleep before it bites at you. But this was kind of the jumping off point because I was reading, and I'm going to get into the next slide, this comic that I really love, Uzumaki. And in the comic, there's snails. People turn into snails depending on their personality types, or there could be a variety of things to go into that's kind of over my head. But that snail really deeply affected me, and I think that in Volcano Manor as well. You're going in through. There's such a like an atmospheric feel to it. It's like going into a horror movie essentially because of what they did to, unfortunately, what they did to the Albinorics. I mean, that was just grotesque. But it was just like going into your own like horror film, seeing all like the torture chambers and stuff like that, and then the screaming Albinorics that were like hanging there in their torture devices and the dumpling sacks on their heads. Really disturbing stuff. But again, so the one we're going to be focusing on is the serpent snail. Okay, so I know this is kind of out of left field. This is just a bit of a side note. So I just kind of wanted to let everybody know the references or where I got my ideas from. Like I mentioned, there were a few Redditors on there, and I'm going to mention a few more in a second. After thinking about the Golden Spiral, and I ended up looking it up, there were a few people that had posted about it before. I kind of came to some of these conclusions. They focused on the map, and then some of the other videos, but the main inspiration that I had to be from Uzumaki. So this is basically a Japanese horror manga series by Junji Ito. He gave me a ton of inspiration for this video. I basically reread it or was rereading it while finishing up Elden Ring, fourth playthrough, and it focuses on a spiraling curse rooting itself in a small town while it traumatizes/transforms its residents. Some examples in the comic regarding the golden ratio includes hurricanes, which we talked about earlier, windstorms from the Farum Azula, physically drawing spirals, which again you could kind of break that down from the architecture that we had found, and some horrifyingly monstrous snails. And so the snails, and please read this, even if you're just going to look up a YouTube video about it afterwards. It is just, the artwork is fantastic, the narrative is fantastic. I just really love the series. I reread it every so often, and I love it's grotesque. Some of it is kind of horrifying, but the ideology behind it is just wonderful. So you should definitely check that out when you get a chance to. Okay, so getting back on track here, we're going to be talking about fauna. We only have, I think, two more left as far as this category goes. So we have these wild Mouflon, I think that's how you say it. They're basically just rams. So the horns of certain goats, rams, and kudu contain the golden spiral as well. The Mouflon, and I am so sorry if I'm mispronouncing that, a possible ancestor of all domestic sheep breeds, falls into this category as well. Another really interesting point is they're only found specifically on Storm Hill. That's just an area right outside the capital. But when they feel threatened, they use this attack. and it's an Ash of War called Lightning Ram. So again, a reference to Ram. So even if that name isn't directly understood as far as Golden Spiral, you won't find that in the exact examples. You will find a ram, and their attack is the Lightning Ram, which I think is really cool. It's like a Sonic Ash of War that you can use. It's a really fun character build. But it's an attack that basically just uses a golden roll of electricity that includes the name, but it's also a spiraling golden roll. So I don't know. Thought that was really okay. So last on the list as far as fauna goes is the Basilisk. So I didn't basically eyes, fins, tails. They all fall into the golden ratio sequence. I didn't really know where to put them, but after reading that, I was like, well, I know what has all of those. And that's basically the Basilisk, right? It's a nasty creature, shoots out death blight. So I just wanted to show you again. I hope you like my diagram of a dolphin. All dolphins exhibit the ratio with their eyes, fins, and tails. So do the Basilisk. And just because a tail is, and I wanted to show you kind of what a horse, seahorse, and a chameleon look like. Just because the tails aren't wrapped up like that does not mean anything as far as what the golden ratio is. That's the golden spiral, but it's just a different form. So we can have a straight tail or a curved tail. That's the reason why I have those pictures on there as well. But the Basilisk has all of those qualities. I mean, its eyes are one of the most distinguishing features. It does have webbed finned like claws, and it does have its tail. So I thought that was really interesting. Okay, so we only have a few more examples left, and then we are going to get to the focal point of the DLC release. I promise you, it's not just a clickbait. Miquella's Cocoon. So Miquella's Cocoon, visually similarity to the uterine rupture, possibly figurative or symbolic uterus of the formless mother. Also, Miquella was ripped away from her rebirth at their Erdtree. So it could be the Erdtree's uterus as well. This was originally pointed out by a Reddit user, Dark Sabbaths. And then I just wanted to add in kind of my own note that Dr. Jasper Verkutz, and I'm very sorry if I'm mispronouncing that, a gynecologist at the University Hospital of Leuven, Belgium, said that the uterus looks healthy based on its relative dimensions, right? Interesting. These dimensions are appropriate to the golden ratio. What? So apparently in his research, he found that women are the most fertile between the ages of 16 to 20, and the ratio of their uterus length to width is 1.6, which is the approximation of the golden ratio again. So my mind was, I was reading all these things, and I was like, okay, this hits there, this hits there. There are way too many examples for this just to be, I don't know, coincidence. Okay, super quick slide here, but I just wanted to kind of show you Miquella's Cocoon. I wanted to show you side by side with a uterine rupture what it looks like. Again, Dark Sabbath, thank you for that. That was fantastic. That was great work on that. And then I also just wanted to kind of add human embryos develop gradually unfolding in a similar way to the golden spiral as well. So when you look up how a human embryo kind of forms in the womb, it's forming, it's curled up and stuff like that. It's forming as the golden spiral as well. Just it's beautiful. It's fantastic. Okay, so we're just going to quickly talk about Mogh's Great Rune. So Mogh's Great Rune, visually similar to the Greek letter phi. The symbol of phi, the Greek letter representation for the golden ratio, is almost the exact same. And I wanted to show you. So you have it right in the, if you want to look in the right corner here. So we have all the way in the right corner, we have Mogh's Great Rune. And then right next to it, that's what the symbol of phi looks like, the Greek letter. This was also, I found this by the head Akian on Reddit mentioning this too. I couldn't find the original comment that they were referencing, but they said that, and then I took a look at it and I was like, that's phi. That is exactly, and it's just weird to have that in the exact same spot as Miquella's Cocoon. They're just the exact same spots, like a lot of references in one go. I thought that was wonderful. I just, again, too much to be a coincidence. Okay, so this is going to be your last example. We have Fibonacci's aliases. So Fibonacci himself is known by many names, such as Leonardo Bonacci, Leonardo of Pisa, Leonardo Bigolio Pizzano, or Leonardo Leonardo Fibonacci. Very sorry about all those mispronunciations. So we know that George R. R. Martin wrote much of the background lore behind the Lands Between's history. Other characters in his past work also don multiple names. These include Daenerys Stormborn Targaryen, Khaleesi the Unburnt, Mother of Dragons, Breaker of Chains, You Know Her, You Love Her, and Rahalor, again, sorry about the mispronunciation, which is the Lord of Light, the Heart of the Fire, the God of the Flame and Shadow. So his works are largely successful because they're a combination of historical events combined with fantastical spin for creative results. Those are great books too, by the way. And the new Dragon series is fantastic on HBO. Side note. And there are several characters that have multiple aliases in Elden Ring as well, such as, and this is my favorite one, is Margot. Margot the Fell Omen, aka Margot the Omen King, aka Margot the Grace Given. So that's one that has multiple aliases. Then we have Miquella as Saint Trina, Ronnie as Rena, Malakath as Garak, and Horalux as Godfrey. So I thought that was really interesting, multiple aliases. I think that's more of George R.R. Martin's take on it. I don't know how much he was involved with the Golden Spiral, but I do know that he does take past historical references. And honestly, math is, in that way, in its own way, is kind of magic. It's brought together so many things. Currency is fantastic, having global currency. So there's a lot to do with that, kind of bringing it all in as a religion. There's a lot of math that goes into the Bible. It's a story for another day. But I thought that was really interesting. Just wanted to kind of add that in as my final note. I love the multiple names on it. It was confusing at first, but then I was like, perfect. It's like the importance of being earnest. It's like Jack in the Country. You know what I mean? So I don't know. But I thought that was really cool. Okay, so the reason why we're all here, right? We're talking about the DLC release date. Sorry for being Captain Clickbait, but I just wanted to get to why I came up with this because I was just sitting there late at night and I saw all these weird similarities, and I just wanted to kind of show you how I came up with this, because if I just said it, you'd be like, wow, how would you come up with that number or that date? So this leads me to my theory that From Software will release the new DLC for Elden Ring early next year on a date that correlates with the ratio itself. But this is possibly just wishful thinking, of course. It would benefit from their Q1 sales numbers for the company and continue to grow their interest in the game throughout 2023. They did a fantastic job conquering everything in 2022 until they announced their next installment. But if they really wanted to continue the concept that inspired many of their maps, characters, ecology, and beliefs as derived from the Golden Ratio, then it would be in their best interest to release a DLC on the 6th of January next year, 1.6. Again, might be elite, might be just wishful thinking, but I do really love this game. I love the lore. I've spent so much time in this game. I think I'm almost at 280, and I just love going back into it. I know that a lot of people say it gets dry and it gets a little repetitive, but I think it's fantastic. And I don't even change the character build for the most part. I just kind of go intelligence all the way and just kind of nuke them, melt the bosses. I just like the world itself. It's again my first From Software game. I don't think I'm going to be going backwards. The maps don't look, it just looks a little different. But love Elden Ring, love the open world aesthetic, and I really appreciate you spending this much time with me today and kind of going over this. I hope you have a wonderful day, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video. Thank you.